Imagine this. The war has ended, the cannons have fallen silent, yet inside banks and financial offices, a new kind of battle begins. No mud, no smoke, only the cold numbers on balance sheets. America, once a debtor nation, suddenly stands as the creditor of the entire world, holding most of the planet's gold. Meanwhile, Europe, exhausted by years of bloodshed, drowns in debt and despair. The guns may be silent, but the financial war never truly stopped. It simply changed form, from trenches to banks, from blood to numbers. Think about this. Every bullet fired back then was paid for with debt, taxes, and trust, from people who never set foot on a battlefield, yet paid for it with their future. World War I didn't just redraw political borders, it rewrote the very nature of money. When nations abandoned the gold standard, they accepted that value no longer came from metal, but from a government's promise. From that moment on, money became a fragile faith, easily broken, easily abused. And perhaps even a century later, we're still living in that echo. A world where money can be created with a keystroke, and trust is the only thing holding it all together. Now picture Germany after the war. Dusty streets, soldiers returning with hollow eyes, and war bonds once seen as a badge of pride, now reduced to worthless paper. Millions of families believed their savings would help their country win. They didn't buy bonds out of greed, but out of patriotism. They trusted their government's promise. When we win, you will be rewarded. But when defeat came, it all vanished. The money was gone, jobs disappeared, and faith was shattered. Imagine being an ordinary German father, clutching that bond while your child goes hungry, realizing it was all a lie. That wasn't just financial ruin, it was the collapse of belief. From those ashes, extremism found its voice. A historian once said, "Wars end, but the debts live on." And those bonds did more than bankrupt a nation. They planted the seeds of another war. When money loses its meaning, faith becomes the most dangerous currency. And history shows, when people are desperate enough, they'll believe in anyone who promises hope, even if it's an illusion. When the war began, gold, the backbone of every economy, ran dry. No nation had enough to pay for the guns, tanks, and endless destruction. So governments did the unthinkable. They abandoned gold, stopped exchanging paper for metal, and quietly printed money and borrowed to fuel the war. From that moment, money was no longer real wealth, just a promise built on faith. When you held a bill, you weren't holding gold anymore. You were holding a story of trust. And, strangely enough, the world believed that story. One economist later wrote, "Money no longer rested on gold, but on faith. And faith is the most fragile thing in war." From then on, humanity entered a new age, one where value could be created by ink, not effort, where numbers could save or destroy an economy. Money became power, a weapon more potent than any gun. Across the ocean, while Europe burned, America played a quieter game. J.P. Morgan and Company, now a symbol of power, became the Bank of War. Though the U.S. claimed neutrality, Morgan and his partners secretly financed Britain and France, funding their weapons, food, and supplies. It seemed like business, but it was a turning point. As dollars flowed into Europe, every shell and tank carried America's imprint. London's centuries-long reign as the world's financial center began to fade, and by the war's end, New York had taken its place. America won the financial war without firing a shot. They conquered with credit and trust. Morgan didn't just sell weapons, he sold belief in the dollar. And when that belief spread, the dollar became the strongest weapon America ever made. Think about it. History isn't always written in blood. Sometimes it's written in contracts, signatures, and quiet deals made behind closed doors. After the war, Europe was a broken giant, alive but barely breathing. Nations once proud were drowning in debt, inflation, and unemployment. Yet they clung to the illusion of restoring glory. They tried to go back to the gold standard, to pretend nothing had changed. Britain led the charge in 1925, trying to peg the pound to its pre-war value, as if time could be reversed. But forcing a shattered economy back to gold was like forcing a broken bone to stand upright. The result was deflation, mass unemployment, and misery for millions. Winston Churchill later called it one of his greatest mistakes, but the real mistake wasn't his alone, Didymus. It was humanity's refusal to accept that the old world was gone. War hadn't just killed men, it had killed faith in the old rules. Sometimes the most dangerous thing isn't change, it's clinging to the past. World War I revealed a chilling truth. Money itself could be weaponized. Governments learned that by printing, borrowing, and manipulating belief, they could finance anything. Wars, depressions, even pandemics. Instead of guns, they used bonds. Instead of battles, they waged campaigns of persuasion, posters urging citizens to buy victory bonds. They didn't sell debt, they sold patriotism. And when the war was over, they kept the playbook, using it for every crisis that followed. As one financier said, once a government learns how to create money from faith, it never stops. And he was right. Every crisis since then, the Great Depression, recessions, financial crashes, has been met with the same three steps. Print more, borrow more, and assure the public it's temporary. But temporary always becomes permanent. That's why the real victims aren't soldiers anymore. They're the savers, the workers, the ordinary people watching their money lose value. Inflation isn't an accident. It's a silent tax, shifting wealth from many to few. Those who understand the system buy real assets. Those who don't just keep losing faith. When the dust settled, a new financial order emerged, a world where debt was strength and money was control. Gold was gone. Trust replaced it. Power no longer sat in parliaments, but in boardrooms and central banks. Those who controlled interest rates, credit, and currency no longer needed armies. This was the true legacy of World War I. Not borders, but a new divide between real money and imagined money. Look around today. Inflation, endless debt, temporary solutions. It's all part of the same war, still being fought in silence. Even the propaganda survived. Governments discovered that economic faith could be manufactured. Posters once said, "Buy war bonds." Today the slogans are different. Invest in the economy. Spend to grow. Trust the system. But the message is the same. Believe, contribute, obey. After the war, the illusion of stability returned in the form of a debt carousel. America lent to Germany, Germany paid reparations to Britain and France, and they in turn sent that money back to America. A perfect loop, until it broke. Nothing new was created. Money just spun in circles until the illusion collapsed. When the Great Depression hit in 1929, the entire system crumbled. Banks fell, millions lost everything, and the world was forced to confront a truth it keeps forgetting. You can't build peace on borrowed promises. And yet, we keep trying. Each crisis, each bailout, each round of quantitative easing is just the same story retold. With better technology, bigger numbers, and the same fragile trust. Because the financial war never really ended, it simply moved online. And the battlefield now is your bank account, your savings, your belief that the system will hold,